life insurance, but this is really the second half of overcoming objections. There's two main objections that are going to happen in life insurance. People who don't have life insurance have certain forms of objections, and people who already have life insurance sometimes have objections as well. They tend to be very different because they're coming from different places. One is coming from a place of ignorance or selfishness. The other is coming from a place of generally skepticism because you're showing them what they have is not good, and they're worried about making a bad choice again because they didn't think they made a bad choice, they just didn't know. So you understand those two universes of objections are really different. They're very differently motivated. They come from different places. Okay, and so we've taught about that in one of the previous sessions. What we're going to teach about tonight is some of the more avant-garde objections, and then if we have a little bit of time, we will do some question and answer. So if there's some objections at the kitchen table you're getting that people are not moving forward, we want to hear them, because if you're getting them, chances are other people are getting them. Unless you're just bat crap crazy and you're doing something totally wrong that nobody else is doing, you're probably getting the same objections, okay? So real quick, let's go through some basics about objections. Okay, there are objections and then there are conditions. What is the difference between an objection and a condition? A condition is something that literally prohibits the sale. Okay, so you're a roofing salesman and you're trying to sell roofing to people who live in apartment complexes. That's a condition. They might really love your roof. They think it's the best looking roof, it's the best price on the roof. They have the money to buy the roof, except they don't own the building to make the improvement to. So that's a condition, right? What else is a condition? I want the insurance, but I have cancer right now. That's a condition. You can't overcome that. There's nothing you can do to move that sale forward. That's a condition, okay? I have absolutely no money. Zero. It literally doesn't exist. That's a condition. I don't want to give you the money is an objection. You understand the difference? So one of the first things that you got to learn how to do when you're sitting at a kitchen table is learn how to identify quickly the difference between condition of moving forward and objection to moving forward. Everybody understand that? Generally, an objection is one of two things. Okay, it's a test of your confidence. Okay, so the client is subconsciously voicing an objection to see, does this person really believe in what they're telling me? Do they really believe it? Is this the right thing? Or are they going to get flustered? So that's one thing they want to know. The second thing they want to know is, have you done this before? Are you a professional? See, when they object and you get all flustered and you don't know what to do and your face starts turning red and you start sweating at the table, you're like, this is going downhill fast, right? They can see that. They're like dogs. They sense fear. Okay, they sense fear in your eyes and the way that you're moving. Okay, so you've got to be prepared and a professional. Now, a professional takes an objection and handles it masterfully, and we're going to go through that in a second, exactly how you do that, but it's a test of confidence. They want to know, do you believe in this, and are you a pro? Have you been here before? See, if you can show them that you've been here before and that you believe in what you're doing, by the way, the best way to show people you believe in what they're doing, the best way to overcome that objection is what? Let me show you mine. Okay? Let me show you why I have this for my family. That's the best overcoming objection and builder of confidence that you could have at that kitchen table is a copy of your policy, a copy of your mutual fund statements, showing them that, hey, what I'm recommending for you is what I do for my own family. Because you understand out there in the industry, y'all, right, all those jokers out there selling whole life, they're all selling whole life, but they own term on themselves, right? They're selling something else than what they own on their own lives. But 100% of the time, we're selling what we own on ourselves to our clients, right? So that's where an objection comes from. A condition comes from the fact that they simply cannot move forward no matter what you say or do. It's not going to happen. So understand the difference, okay? Everybody good with that? So watch this. When you're sitting in front of a qualified prospect, so there's no condition, they need what you're doing, they have the money to pay for what you're doing, there's only three potential outcomes, you all, that can happen in that situation. Number one is you don't ask them to move forward. You say, well, why would you do that? But I would be willing to bet half of this room consistently does not ask the client to move forward. Y'all want them to say, this sounds great. Can you sign me up right now? Here's my checking account and my driver's license. That's really what you're wishing for. The problem is, listen, insurance is sold, it's not bought. Why? Because people know so little about it, and the fact is, it's a responsibility product. Okay? It's a responsibility product. Nobody wants to be responsible. It's not going to sell itself. You have to sell it. Okay? And so you've got to ask people to move forward. Let's go ahead and get you started. Okay? So only one of three outcomes sitting across from a qualified prospect. Number one is you don't ask them and you become a professional visitor. Okay? Listen, professional visitor salaries start out at a whopping 0 and they cap out at a whopping 0. Okay? So I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in making more friends across the kitchen table. I'm not interested in sharing our life stories and talking about our cats. I want to help your family get protected, and I want to help my family by making income. Okay? And so that's a fair trade, but we've got to ask people to move forward. Okay? The second thing that can happen here is that you have an objection that you cannot overcome, or third, there's a condition. So only three outcomes other than they buy, right? They buy is the fourth outcome. But if they didn't buy, you didn't ask, they couldn't buy, or there was an objection you did not overcome. Only three scenarios. I've never had somebody say, hey man, what happened? Well, I didn't close. Well, why? Man, they vaporized in front of my eyes. I was sitting at the table and they just disappeared into dust. I didn't know what happened. I'm sitting there, all of a sudden they're both gone. I've never had that happen to me. So if they're still there and you're still there, then you didn't ask them, they couldn't buy, or they gave you an objection you could not overcome. Write this down. All objections can be overcome. Why? Because if what you're doing is the right thing, and that's the truth, then an objection is a misunderstanding of the truth. You understand that? Okay? So eventually, if you keep correcting the misunderstanding will go away and the truth will be the only thing left. What did Winston Churchill say, right? Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. That's what he talked about, truth. And that's the same thing sitting at a kitchen table. At the end of the day, if it's the right thing for them, and you stay in the close, write that down, stay in the close. If you stay in the close, eventually they're going to see the truth, or they're going to be totally off in left field, not thinking logically at all. There's only three things that are going to happen. So I submit to you, if you become a professional at preparing and overcoming objections and closing, you're going to do a ton of business. A ton of business. But you got to become a pro. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So there is a three-step process to overcoming any objection, not just in our business, but in any business, in any relationship, in anything. Three-step process. Step number one is to always do what? Affirm the objection. And an amateur salesperson is going to get an objection, and they're going to take the objection personally. Write this down. Emotionally disconnect from the outcome. Emotionally disconnect from the outcome. Okay? You've got to be willing to understand that they're not rejecting or objecting to you personally. They're objecting to themselves. You have insurance. They don't have insurance. Okay? They're objecting to themselves, not to you. So don't get offended. Don't get upset. Affirm the objection. Jeff, thanks so much for bringing that up. That's a great question. That's the last thing a prospect expects when they're dealing with a salesperson, is that the salesperson says, hey, you know what? I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a great point. Right? They're expecting, well, what don't you like about it? What can I do differently? How can I, right? They're expecting this confrontation. And when we don't confront, but we rather affirm, all of a sudden we become a consultant salesperson instead of an adversarial salesperson. Do you understand that? So we always affirm, no matter what they say, no matter how dumb it is, right? Sometimes you're sitting there at the kitchen table and the prospect says something so dumb, you're trying not to laugh. Right? I'm like, don't laugh in their face. Don't laugh right? Like Jimmy Meyer says, right? I'm not interested. Ha ha! What do you mean you're not interested? You're broke. Right? Okay? You can't do that. You can't laugh. Write that down. Don't laugh in prospect's face. Okay? Well, what do you mean you're not interested in life insurance? I see 3 little kids there. Are you a bozo? Right? Okay? You can't say that to them. You got to affirm them. Listen, man, I really appreciate that your muscle car in the garage needs some parts. I understand how important that is to you. Right? Okay? And then you bring them back around to point number 2, which is what? Answer the objection. Now write this down. You should have 5 answers for every common objection. Why? Because people don't know how to listen real good. People don't know how to listen real good. See, in sales, we're not just responsible for what we say, we're responsible for what the people hear. Do you understand? And so sometimes you've got to have 3, 4, 5 ways to say the same thing before certain people will understand what you're saying to them. So you always affirm them, then you have the answer, okay, and then you what? Close. You ask them to move forward. What a lot of amateur salespeople do is they affirm, they'll answer the objection, and then they sit there and stare at the prospect. Like waiting for them to say, sir, sounds good, sign me up. They're not going to say that most of the time, right? So you've got to ask them to move business. Does that make sense, Jeff? Great. Let's go ahead and get started. Can I get your driver's license? You always bring it back to the close. If they have another concern, what are they going to do? They're going to voice it. But if you just leave it silent, they're going to voice something because they don't like silence. Okay? So a pro is going to affirm, answer, close. Look at your neighbor, say affirm, answer, close. All right. So let's go ahead and go through some of this, right? Okay? So some of the objections with group insurance. Now, listen, you all need to go on POL and you need to go to training and you need to watch my life insurance at the kitchen table video, because every scenario we're going to talk about has a presentation that will overcome the objections before you get them. So this is assuming you've done the presentation, you've explained to them the 4 points of why group insurance is bad, and they still object to you. Okay? Because if you're smart, you've gone through the process exactly, you've overcome the objections. Okay, so listen, when you get people who still object to you that have group insurance and think they're okay with group insurance, one of a couple things has happened. They haven't understood what you told them in the presentation about why it's not good, right? That's probably number one. So the first place you go back is you go back, say, remember this, remember this, remember this, right? You said you understood why you shouldn't have this, but you're telling me you're okay just having that. I'm confused. Can you tell me a little bit more? And I get them to sell me on why they think it's a good idea. And what you're going to find virtually always is even though you told them why it's not a good idea, they weren't listening to you. They were thinking about something else, right? They're confused, whatever. Okay, so you got to bring them back to the presentation. Okay, but a couple of things that you can do here, right, and a couple of objections you're going to get that are kind of outside of it, and they're rooted in the second thing. So either they're not listening, number one, or number two, they don't trust what you're saying to them, right? Well, I understand what you told me, Deb, about these 4 reasons why group insurance is bad, but I want to look at it first myself, right? Let me look at it and I'll get back to you. And that's fair enough, except for what problem? On group insurance, you can't look at it because you don't have a what? You don't have a policy. You have a certificate of insurance, okay, which will provide you this much documentation about how it works. This much, 0. There is no policy to be reviewed virtually always, okay? And so where can you find information about this? Well, you can generally find it in their employee handbook, okay? So you can say, great, let's go look. Do you have your employee handbook? Let's look at it really quickly. Okay? So if they want to look at it, you've got to explain to them, Jeff, listen, that's a great idea. I really appreciate that. I want you to look at it. The only problem is you'll look for the rest of your life and you'll never be able to look at it because it doesn't exist. You have a certificate, you don't have a policy. Now, Jeff, when it comes to something as important as making sure your family's taken care of forever, wouldn't it make sense for you to at least have something to show that you have this? I mean, wouldn't that make sense? Right, okay. Do you have an employee handbook? Can we go and look at this? Great. And if they do, you just open it up and read the crap. It's bull crap, y'all. Listen, here's how insurance works. You need to understand how to think about this, okay? Group insurance is one of 3 things: free, super cheap, or more expensive than private insurance. So what's free? Very, very small amounts, right? Super small amounts. What's paid for but cheap? Larger amounts that they can't take with them, that go away if they get sick or hurt, right? Okay. And what's more expensive? Stuff that ends up being somewhat portable, but it's more expensive. Why is it more expensive than getting their own policy? Insure everybody. Because they're insuring everybody. Stop and think this through. You need to be able to explain this to somebody, right? So I'd say, Dean, listen, the reason that your group insurance is cheaper is this. You ever heard the statement, you get what you pay for? Great. Okay, so let me explain to you how they're doing this. Dean, let me ask you a question. Okay, so hopefully you don't smoke. You're probably pretty healthy, but do you understand that the guy that smokes 3 packs a day, he's had 3 heart attacks, he's got diabetes, he weighs 600 pounds. You understand you and he are paying the same rate, right? You understand that. Well, how could that be possible if it's so cheap unless they don't ever really intend on paying you, right? It's just math, right? Somebody's got to pay this. Do you understand that? Okay, so that's how I explain to them why it's less, well, but it's just less expensive. Well, Dean, why is that? I want the client to think that through. Somebody's got to pay this money, yes or yes? Yeah. So if they know nothing about you and you're paying the same as these horribly risked people, then there's got to be something about the product that they deem probably less probable to pay you out than what I'm offering you. I mean, it's just math, right, Dean? Okay, so that's how you explain it to people, right? Okay, so if I want to let me look at it first, listen, Brad, I really want you to look at it. I think that's a great idea. The problem is you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to find it, and you're never going to find it because it's not a policy. You have a certificate. You don't own anything. You're participating in a plan. Now, Brad, just that alone should say something, right? Because when it comes to something as important as protecting your wife and your child, you would probably want something that says, I even have this, right? That would make sense. Let me get it for you. Can we go forward with this tonight? He still objects, so I still want to see it first. Well, great. Do you have an employee handbook? Because that's the only place we're going to be able to find it, right? Okay? And you just walk through that with them, okay? I won't be able to change till next year, okay? This is a fallacy. See, there's something called open enrollment when you can enroll in employee benefits. That happens how many times a year? Generally once. How often can you get out of employee benefits? Anytime you want. You call tomorrow and say, I don't want to have this anymore. Legally, they cannot continue to deduct money from your paycheck for benefits you no longer want. They have to stop them immediately. But if you're not careful, you're going to get sold by people that are just as ignorant as you, if you're ignorant of this, about why they can't make a change. Well, Jeff, this sounds good, but open enrollment is until next year. I don't want to move forward until then. Jeff, I really appreciate that. That's a great point. I wouldn't want to do that either if I was you. The good news is you could stop this tomorrow. Now, we're not going to. We're going to get our coverage first, make sure it's good. But as soon as you're ready to stop, you can stop because, Jeff, they're not by law allowed to continue taking money from you for a product you no longer want. You can only get in once a year, but, Jeff, you can get out anytime you want. Does this make sense to you? Great. Let's go ahead and go forward with the application. Let's get you something issued so you can do that. Okay? So you need to calm their concerns about moving forward with group life insurance, okay? So they already have other life insurance. This is the objection you're going to get, okay? I want to talk to my other company first, or my other agent, okay? So again, this is rooted in the belief that you're not telling them the truth, or how could this person have sold me this? Why did they sell it to me? They want to know why, okay? The problem is it doesn't matter why. You have bull crap, right? So let's get you out of it, and let's move along. So here's how I overcome that, okay? There's a couple of ways to do it. The first way is a logic way, okay? And so the logic way is this. I say, Jasmine, that's a great thing, and I want you to be able to talk to your other company, okay? But listen, before we start barking up a tree and ruffling a bunch of feathers, we don't even know if this is going to go through or if it's going to even end up being beneficial. So why don't we go forward with the application? Let me get you a policy, right? And then if you want to talk to them, we can go and even talk to them together. But that way you have a policy. Because, Jasmine, guess what they're going to say? Well, what are you looking at? And you're going to say, well, I think it kind of works like this. And they're going to say, do you have a policy you can show me so I can look at it for you? And you're going to say, what? No, I don't. And they're going to say, well, I don't know then what you're asking me about. So why don't we get a policy, because that's what they would want to see. Right? Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and get you started. Let's get a policy. And if we want to go back and talk with them, let's go do that. And Jasmine, I'd like to even go with you, because I can ask questions you're not going to ask, right? Because you want to make sure you get the best thing, right? Okay, great. So why don't we, instead of having extremely financially educated versus average person, why don't we have maybe 2 people there that could ask each other questions on your behalf? That would make sense, right? Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and get you started. So that's way 1, to get them to move forward even though they want to talk to the other company. Because guess what's going to happen, you all, when they call the other company? Do you think the other company's going to say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Why don't you leave us go with them? They sound so much better. right? Is that what's going to happen? No, guess what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, Primerica, A.L. Williams is in jail, right? I had this one guy, yeah, I have this one guy, who, by the way, A.L. Williams is not in jail, right? Okay, but I had this one guy, this union guy. I met field training somebody, nice guy, single guy. This guy had a $25,000 whole life policy. He's like 30 years old. He's paying $100 a month for it from his union rep. Okay, right? So I show him this, and we get him like 3, 4, 5 times the amount of term insurance for way less. We put the money in a mutual fund. He calls me 2 days later upset. He's like, I want to cancel this, blah, blah, blah. I talked to this guy. They said, you're trying to screw me. Art Williams is in jail, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, look, here's what I want you to do. Okay, because I appreciate that, but here's what I want you to do real quick before we do this, because I'm giving you a way better deal, right? Okay, I just want you to Google, is Art Williams in jail? And so he does. He calls me back later. He's like, this guy's lying to me. I'm like, you're exactly right. He's lying to me, right? Okay, so these people will stop at no end to try to discredit the company or you or our concept, right? Literally, that's what I've heard this before, right? Okay, and that was a common thing back in the 80s, right? Art Williams is in jail. Art Williams never went to jail. Art Williams was never accused of anything. Art Williams never faced any criminal anything of any sort, right? But that doesn't stop lying insurance people from telling that to your clients, okay? So rather than opening up that can of worms, why don't we get something here and then let me help you navigate it, because all they're going to do is lie to your face, because life insurance agents are professional liars, you all. That's what they do. That's how could you sell these products to people without being a professional liar? You're either dumb as you know what, or you're a professional liar. One of the two things, okay? So that's exactly what they're going to do. Let's face the fact, y'all, they're far better salespeople than you are. How do they get somebody to pay $400 a month for $200 grand of life insurance? Unless they are a way better salesperson than you are, right? So you better be prepared for them to come out guns blazing on you. If you let that client call them, you're just never going to hear them before. So you got to control that circumstance. You got to control that interaction, and you do that by, hey, listen, let's not bark up the tree till we know we got something good. We might not even be able to cover it. You're going to spend all their time, all your time. Then we can't even do it, and everybody's just upset and taking everybody's time, right? So let's make sure it's good, and then we'll go see. Second way to overcome this. Okay, so Jeremy, listen, I appreciate you want to talk to your other guy, okay, and I really want you to do that after we get a policy, because he's going to want to see it. But Jeremy, listen, there's really only one of two things that's happened here, okay? Thing number one is, and this, I'm sure this is what happened, okay, and I'm just kind of bluffing a little bit with him here. I'm sure this is what happened, but I'm sure your guy offered you the best thing that he had, right? Okay, he sold you that very best that he had. He was looking out for your best interest, gave you the best thing he had. And what we've seen today, Jeremy, is the best thing that he had is not the best thing for you, because I've shown you a better way, right? You'd agree with that. What I'm showing you is better. So he either sold you the best thing he had, and it's just not as good, okay? In which case, if he really cared about you, he would want you to have the right thing for you, right? I would want you to have the right thing for you, okay? So that's option one. So either way, he's going to say, hey, Jeremy, listen, I did the best I could. Go ahead and go with them. Or option two, and I hope this isn't the case, okay? But the only other option, Jeremy, is he didn't sell you the best thing he had. He either did or didn't, right? If he didn't sell you the best thing he had, and you caught him red-handed overcharging you for something that he could have been charging you way less and giving you a much better product, I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I wouldn't necessarily want to go back to this person that I just caught taking advantage of me and see what new way he can finagle to take advantage of me now, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Okay, well, you got it once. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward here, right? Let's go ahead and move forward, and when we know it's good, if you want to take it to him as a professional respect and courtesy, I totally appreciate it. But Jeremy, listen, the only thing I'm going to ask you is that I'd like to be involved in that conversation, okay? Because you bought something you thought was good, but it wasn't really good, right? And I've shown you that, and I can listen for these things that he's going to tell you. I can ask the right questions, so I'd like to be involved in that conversation. And quite honestly, it's in the best interest of you and your family that I'm involved in that conversation. Is that fair? Great, let's go ahead and move forward.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone to other agents?
I've had agent confrontations before.
How'd that work out?
They don't, it's not good. For them. It's not good. So it's very basic. Most of the time, they end really quickly by saying, Jeff, you don't mind if I put a recorder on the table and we record this just to make sure that everybody's being honest? That's about the end of that conversation. Because they have, what are you going to say? Do you get, when they die, did you tell them that when they die, they get both their cash value and their insurance, or they just get one? Well, they just get one. Mr. Klein, I told you that, right? But that wasn't what you understood, right? Okay, great. And you just destroy them in 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I've never had an agent confrontation that we didn't win. I've had them where they get mad. I've had them where they attack me personally, right? Well, you just don't know what you're doing. You're so new in the industry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but I just don't tell you. Say that, sir, that's fine. Let me ask you this question, right? They have a variable life product, right? Okay, and the cost of insurance is going to go up every year, isn't it, inside the policy? Well, yes. And like it says here in the policy, that might terminate if what they're paying is not enough. That means they could keep paying, but it might not be enough because the cost of insurance might go up. Is that right? Well, yeah. So this really isn't guaranteed for any specific period of time, right? It could end much sooner. Well, yeah, Mr. Client, this is exactly what I've explained to you, right? Okay, great. Do you have any further questions? I mean, it's just, you're just a lawyer cutting these people down right in front of them, right? But you always record it. You put it on there, because otherwise these people will lie through their teeth. That's what they do for a living, right? Okay? Any questions on that? All right. So that's how you handle, I want to talk to my other company. How do you handle, I want to shop it out? Okay? Well, so here's the deal. They've had the wrong thing for who knows how long. You've just shown them a better way, and all of a sudden, they're the conscientious consumer. Right? Okay. What have you been doing for the last 10 years, brother? But you don't tell them that. Here's what you say. Say, John, listen, I really appreciate that. I would really like you to shop it out because, John, I know once you've shopped it out, you're going to feel so great about what I'm getting you, you're going to tell all your friends and family. So I really want you to shop it out. But, John, let me explain to you the best way that this works. All policies are a little different, and all policies at the end are very different. Okay? So you're comparing really three things. What's the price now? How does it work? And what's the price later? Okay, and so John, unfortunately, you can't get all that information with a quote. Okay, so if you're serious, John, about shopping this out, I would actually like you to apply with me and go forward with applications with other carriers. Okay, and then what we'll do when we get back together, and it's the only thing I'm going to ask from you, because I can read these in 5 minutes, okay, just like I've shown you, but you didn't really know what you had, and so you're probably not going to know all the ins and outs of the other ones. What I'd like to do, John, is when I get back, I'd just like to get a commitment from you that will compare my policy and the other ones you get, and you'll let me help you show you like I've shown you in yours. It's going to be black and white, right? What I'm showing you from us is better, right? Okay? And you're going to see ours is going to be better or it's not going to be better. Now, John, my promise to you is that if ours isn't better, I don't want you to take it. Is that fair? I want you to do the right thing for your family, even if it means not being with us. Okay? You are going to be with us. I'm not confident in the product, okay? But if you really want to shop it out, I encourage you, but unfortunately there's no way to shop it out other than let's get policies from 2 or 3 different carriers. Okay? So if you got to get them anyways, let's start tonight with this. We know this is an improvement, and if you do want to shop it out, I'd encourage you to do it, and we'll just get back together and look at it. Is that good? Okay, great. Let me go ahead and get your driver's license. Okay? That's how you squelch shop it out. How many of them are actually going to shop you out? Very few. But if they do, great, get another policy. I'm going to murder it right in front of you. You're going to come and work with me. Right? Okay?
So when you replace someone else's policy, if you give them any material to prevent buyer's remorse after they talk to
I leave them a leave behind, okay, right? And I explain to them, right, let's not, look, your guys might, I'm going to send them a replacement form. They might call you. The best thing to do, John, between now and when we get a policy issued is just don't take that phone call, because you got nothing to say to them yet. And if they were smart and they really cared about your best interest, John, they would want to see a copy of the policy, right? If I was a doctor and you didn't necessarily know if I was giving the best advice and you just called another doctor and they said, sure, over the phone, you got this, this, and this, here's these meds, go do this, that you probably wouldn't feel real confident in that doctor's expertise, not even knowing anything or being able to see anything, right? Same idea. So if they call you, and I don't think they will, but if they do, Okay, I just want you to know, like, hey, best thing to do is say, hey, you know what? Let me get a policy, I'll call you back. And then that way we can actually compare details, right? Is that fair? Great.
How long do you wait to follow up with them?
About what?
If they say they're gonna shop it off?
I don't follow, I close it right then. Right? I didn't say go ahead and get back to me. I said the best way to do this is if you're serious about shopping, Monet, I want you to shop it out. I'm confident you're going to go forward with us. But unfortunately, the only way you're really going to be able to shop it out is to get policies issued from other carriers. Right? Okay? So let's get ours issued. Let's get those other ones issued. The only thing I ask is that we can get back together and I can go through them with you so I can show you how they work. Is that fair? Great. Let's go ahead and get started. I need your driver's license. Yeah, I definitely didn't say, okay, shop it out and get back to me. Because they're not going to shop it out. It's just a stall. I don't want to make a choice right now, so I'm going to blurt something out of my mouth that I think is going to get me out of having to make a choice. Right? And so that's what they blurted out, and then I helped them understand that that wasn't an acceptable answer, right? Okay, any questions? Okay, let's continue on. I want to wait until I get closer to the end of the term. So this is when you're competing on a price differential, right? Okay, and you're going to get this all the time with engineers and accountants. Anybody that's good at math would have this thought. It's a good thought. The thought is valid, but it's not correct. Okay, and I'm going to explain that to you. So they've got a 20-year term. They're 8 years in. How long do they have left? 12 years. So they're paying $70 a month now, and then it goes astronomical. You've tied them down, right, Mr. and Mrs. Client, 12 years. Are you sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you're going to have no need for this life insurance? They say, no, I probably need it. Say, great, are you going to pay this amount that goes from $80 a month to $800 a month? They say, no. Say, great, well, that's why we got to go forward with getting you something now, but yours is $100 a month because you had to get them a new 15-year term. And they only had how long left? 12. And so they get the concept, they understand why it's better, and then they say, John, this sounds good, but I think I just want to wait on this till I get a little closer to term. Let me pay the cheaper rate a little bit further along, and then I'll make the switch. Okay? So what do I say to him? I say, Val, listen, I really appreciate that, and you know what? You are thinking about this exactly the right way. That's what anybody who understood numbers would want to do. There's just one problem with that, Val. Okay, you're extremely intelligent. Most people wouldn't think of that. The only problem is the actuaries are even smarter than you. Okay, I'm not trying to be rude to you, but let me explain to this. What you're saying would be totally valid if the prices stayed static, but they don't stay static. So guess what? Next year, instead of $80 a month, this is going to be 90, and then it's going to be 100, and it's going to be 120. So you're not saving money now and then getting the same price later. It's actually going to be far more expensive. And the insurance companies know that. They want your money now because you're less likely to die today than you are 5 years from now when you'd like to do it. Let me prove it to you. And I'll go and I'll quote them. I'll say, all right, you got 12 years left, so when do you think you would think wait another 5 years or 6 years and then try to get it? Great. So I show them you're paying $20 a month more with us for the next 6 years. So that's what you think you're going to save by not making the switch, right? Okay, and then I go and quote the policy is 6 years older, and guess what? Now you're paying $50 a month more for the next 7 years. I just do the math, I show them. The math works 100% of the time because that's how insurance works. Does everybody understand that? Okay, if there's a savings differential now, that's going to be even worse later on down the road because this year is the best year for them to have insurance in the insurance company's eyes. Right? So they have to keep creeping up the price. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, that I won't even address if Val understands that, is the insurability issue. Val, I appreciate that. That makes total sense. What happens if you can't get it and now you're stuck having this ungodly high policy, which you told me you couldn't pay for? Right? But this, now you go into subjective territory. Well, I don't think I'm going to get sick. That's a hard one to argue with because it's not based in logic. Could you get sick? Yes, you could. Could you end up having to pay this price you cannot pay? Yes, you could. Right? But now you're arguing with them. Right? They have a feeling that's not based in any form of reality. So I don't want to go to the feeling if I can just show her in numbers why it doesn't make sense. Val, yeah, you're going to save $20 a month now, but then it's going to cost you $60 a month later. Does it make any sense to save $20 now to pay $60 later? Probably not, right? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move forward. Does everybody understand how you do that? Okay, so this is, you got to learn how to think on your feet, and so much of this is rooted in an understanding of how the insurance industry works, right? The insurance industry wants your money today, because today you're the least likely day to die. Out of all the days you have left, today is the least likelihood day. Why? Because tomorrow you got one day less than you had today, right? I mean, that's just how it works. JQ's excited back there. So, whoop!
Yep.
Annual renewable term. AAA sells this a lot. There's a couple other carriers that sell it a lot. Northwestern Mutual sells it a lot. Okay, it's annual renewable term, which, by the way, is the most expensive form of term insurance on the planet Earth. But it is, remember, clients know very little about their life insurance, right? Okay, so all they know is it's cheap. Why is it cheap? Because they're paying the rate for this year independent of any other years, right? So what happens is it's super cheap now, and it gets more and more expensive every year. The older they get, the more of an S curve that starts to take, right? So it becomes exponentially more expensive. So how do you kill an ART? Very, very simple. So say they have an ART right now, and you want to quote them a 30-year term. How do you do this? You calculate the price every year for the next 30 years and average it. So it's $200 a year now, and it's $4,000 a year in year 30. So you just take a calculator, say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, let's see what this is actually going to cost you. Shane, we call this total cost. What am I going to pay totally for this over the next 30 years? So I take year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way through to whatever, year 20, year 30, whatever you're comparing it against. So I have this big old number, and then I divide it by the 30 years. So I say, Shane, this is your actual cost of insurance every year over the 30 years, right? Cheaper now, more expensive later, but that's what it's actually costing you, right? So it's costing you $1,000 a year, but mine's $600 a year. Do you understand that? Okay, so yeah, you're paying a little more now, but you're paying a lot less over time. So Shane, we would want to pay less over time if it was possible, right? Okay, and I'll explain it to them. Or I'll explain it to them like cable. You know, Shane, have you ever seen like the introductory offers on cable, $99 a month for 12 months? And then what happens in the 13th month?
They jack it up.
They jack it up, and then you start looking for another cable provider. Now, Shane, think about this. What if they said it's $99 a month, then it goes crazy, and you can never switch? Would you buy it based on the introductory rate at that point if they would never let you switch? Probably not. You'd want to know, well, what's it actually going to cost me for the rest of my life when I'm paying this, right? That's exactly what I'm showing you here. You have an introductory rate that you can't get out of potentially down the road. You understand that? Great. So why don't I get you a rate that you're good with forever, and then that way you don't have any surprises you can't get out of. Shane, do you like surprises you can't get out of?
No.
Okay, great. Me neither. Let's go ahead and move forward with this. You understand that? Everybody following? Perfect. Return of premium. This one is the insurance agents go to, right, when they think they got somebody, because they don't understand. Most of these guys don't even understand how this works. So return of premium in concept sounds ingenious. You don't die, you don't have to pay the money. That sounds good, right? Okay. So the way that it works is it's term insurance with a rider on it that costs about 50% more than normal term insurance. Okay. So if normal term insurance on a 30-year term was $1,000, and return of premium is probably $1,500, maybe even $2,000. Okay, it's 50 to 100% more expensive, and the pitch is, Val, no matter what, if you don't die, you get all the money back. It sounds great, right? Okay, so here's exactly how I kill this in front of them. So I draw a picture of 2 refrigerators. I say, Jeff, listen, here's refrigerator A, refrigerator B. Okay, refrigerator A costs $1,000, or whatever their premium is. Refrigerator B costs $2,000. So whatever their ART is. So ART and what I've shown them, right? And I say, now Val, listen, in 30 years that refrigerator breaks, you're out the $1,000. It's just gone, okay? In 30 years, if you don't break the refrigerator, they give you the $2,000 back. So you'd be willing to pay more, so you got it back, right? Because instead of losing $1,000, you got all your money back, right? Wrong. Let me show you why. Okay, and then I take the difference, I show them, all right, so you're paying $1,000 more for this, right?
Yeah.
So I take $1,000, I go to Money Chimp, I put $1,000 in, I say, Val, what do you think is a reasonable rate of return over 30 years you could earn on an investment? Guess what most ignorant people say? 4, right? Okay, I said, perfect, let's go look at it. And I show them in 30 years at 4%, that grand is worth about what? Well, what rule 72 divided by 4 is what? About 18 years. So your 1 becomes 2, your 2 almost becomes 4. It's about $3,500. You understand that? So I say, Val, listen, what they did is they tricked you into paying more and actually getting nothing, because if you would have paid the $1,000 and saved the $1,000, your $1,000 would be worth $3,500. And if the fridge wasn't broken, you could still keep the fridge. $2,000, you got to return the fridge. You got to give it back, right? Okay, so pay less, take the money you would have paid for it, and you'll actually have more money than they would have given you back, and you could keep the fridge. Now, does it make sense to do the return of premium one?
Yeah.
No, right? You explain to them. Yeah. Come on, Val.
Yeah.
She knew.
Yeah,
She was on your side.
She was She knew. She knew.
Thank you.
So does everybody understand that? Go ahead.
The other trick thing with return of premium is they actually have to cancel
They have to
their
get rid of the
policy
policy.
to get rid of it.
Right.
To get the
So
money
they
back.
make you get the policy away, right? So you can't have it anymore to get the money.
Yeah.
Right? So again, you just show them the difference. Let's say you bought our term insurance, okay? You could still keep it after the fact, but let's say you took the difference and you don't have to pay and you invested it. What would that investment be worth? And the answer is 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times it would be worth versus what they're getting back. Okay, that makes sense? Sure.
Is this the same as someone maybe giving an objection saying that they already paid up for the year or something?
Not really. So generally, most insurance companies will refund you pro rata if you paid for the year.
Okay.
In Michigan, by law, they don't have to, but virtually all of them do. But guess what? If they won't, guess what you do? Call the insurance, get ours in place, call the insurance company, put it down to a contractual minimum. You take their 500 grand down to 50,000. They've got $1,000 in there. They got 50,000 for free for the next 3 or 4 years with the money they've already prepaid. So they don't lose the money. They're still getting something for it.
I just want to bring something up, and it's almost 8, and I don't want to forget to ask this in front of everybody else, but what I bumped into a lot lately is there's a lot of companies out there right now pitching that they have what we have, a decreasing term benefit, and it's not. It's a UL term.
Yep.
And people are bumping into that, so if you could address that.
Sure. So that's only really smart insurance agents even know anything about it. But yeah, so there's no such thing as UL term. It's universal life being sold as a term. It's called stripped out universal life. There's no cash value. Okay, and here's the easiest way to explain this. There's going to be a note on there that says if the premiums they pay are not sufficient to continue the insurance, it's not going to continue. There's about 40 disclaimers and then 20 pages of circumstances that have to happen in order for their projections to work out. And I just say this, I say, Jeff, listen, I'm not a rocket scientist, you're not a rocket scientist, right? Okay, so what my contract says is guaranteed for this period of time. That's what it says on one page, okay? But in your contract, it doesn't use the word guarantee anywhere. It says illustration, adjustable, all these things. And then it gives itself like 10 pages of ways that it might not work. Now, Jeff, again, I'm not a rocket scientist, you're not a rocket scientist, but if it worked like it was guaranteed for 30 years, wouldn't it just be easier to write guaranteed for 30 years than print all these reasons why it might not be? Because that's what mine says. Mine's easy. It says guaranteed for 30 years. Yours says this and 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 this all have to happen in this formula minus this. Jeff, I don't know about you, but that seems to me like they might be trying to put something in there that could get them out of what they promised you. If they weren't, why would they put it in there? Right? Okay, so Jeff, you want something you hope works or you want something you know works? It's your choice. Okay, and here's how I sell this. It's the $2,000 boat and the $1,000 boat. Because the UL, that stripped out UL is super cheap. Why? Because it's basically an ART without even having to commit to the ART price. Right? They can jack it up to whatever they want. So here's how I sell this. So I use the contract. Jeff, we're not rocket scientists. 1 page versus 10 pages of how they don't have to. Which one do you think is in your best interest? And the second thing I say, Jeff, listen. I'm showing you a 20-year term. You thought you had a term. It's not a term, but that's what they sold it to you as. Okay, but let's just assume it was. Okay, and term one, you know, our term's $1,500 a year, and this is $1,100 a year. Okay, let's just assume it was the same for all practical intents and purposes. So think about it like boats. Pretend it wasn't insurance, but it was boats. You have two boats, the same exact boat, same model. One boat's $1,500, one boat's $1,100. Which boat are you going to buy? $1,100, right? What if I told you there's some chance that boat is going to sink on you 5 years from now when you're out in the lake, but I can guarantee you, no matter what, this boat's not sinking. Guaranteed, in writing guaranteed. Here, this mechanical thing might go wrong, that thing might go wrong. They gave you a list of all that could go wrong. Now which boat would you buy, Jeff? You buy the $1,500 one. Why?
Safer.
Yes, because you're not going to die on it, right? Okay, but that's exactly what's happening here, right? So we're going to pay a little bit more for one we know works versus pay a little bit less and find out 5 years down the road, oops, it doesn't work. Does that make sense? You do it for a boat, let's do it for your life insurance. So on those ones, rather than splitting details about the 17 things that are going on in that policy, you just got to talk common sense to people. People have common sense if it's explained to them, right? If they weren't trying to screw you, why'd they put 10 pages in about how they can screw you? Right? Why else does it need to be there? Okay? Paid up whole life. Well, I'm not paying anything for it. So there's two sorts of paid up whole life. There's actual whole life that can be paid up. This is the worst sort of whole life. Why? Because when you die, you don't get the cash value. So how do you pay up a whole life policy? You've taken a lifetime's worth of premiums and you've what? Paid them over a shorter amount of time. Which means you have more money in there that's going to get taken from you if you die sooner than if you spread it out over paying your whole life. Does that make sense? So paid up whole life is the worst sort of whole life because you put all the money you're going to lose up front into the policy. Right? Do you understand? So I just tell them, I say, man, I'm glad you don't have to pay for it, but you are paying for it. Let me explain to you how you're paying for it. When you die, all this money gets taken from you. So what are you paying for? All of that, right? Okay? Plus whatever interest you'd be earning. So I just show them, so you got 40 grand in the paid up $150,000 policy, right? What would that be earning at, say, 9% a year? What's 9% of 40 grand? 3,600 bucks. So you're not earning that interest, so that's 300 a month, plus you lose 40 grand. I'm trying to get you this policy for 100 bucks a month, and you get to keep your 40 grand. Which sounds better? Lose 40 grand and pay $300 a month for the privilege to lose 40 grand, or pay $100 a month and keep your 40 grand, and have the same insurance? Which sounds better to you? Great, let's go ahead and move forward, okay? Now, more times than not, you don't see people with paid up whole life. You see people who got scammed into buying universal life because they could stop making their payments, right? So you just show them that their cash value is being depleted rapidly and an increasing cost structure. Say, did they explain that to you? And guess what they say 100% of the time? No, because they wouldn't have bought it if they knew, by the way, it's not actually paid up, it's going to run out of money, and then you're going to owe all sorts of money on it. Okay? Any questions on that? I don't have any money right now. Great, when will you have the money? Next Friday. Great. So let's talk about this. This is a good time to address save and submits. Save and submit is a wonderful function. Okay, but let me explain to you how the save and submit happens appropriately. So Jeremy says, I want to do this, but I don't have money till Friday. Next Friday. So that's 10 days from now, hypothetically, right? So here's what I say. I say, Jeremy, that's great. So next Friday, what we're going to do is we're going to set this up. We're going to take the application now, and money will draft out next Friday. Okay, or maybe the following day, Monday or Tuesday the next week, okay? But that way we can start your insurance. And listen, if you die between now and then, somebody better go and put that money in there. Okay, right? So you're good for next Friday. You're sure? You're sure, okay? Because listen, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in, but there's no way to stop it once I put this in here, okay? You can't call me and say, this happened, something came up. You're just going to have to make it work. So you're sure next Friday is good, right?
Yeah.
You're positive?
Yes.
Should be or it is?
Sure. Yes, it is.
Okay. Tell me what Jeremy is saying to me.
Jeremy is saying,
No, I'm not going to be there.
Okay.
The money's gonna be gone, Jeremy.
Okay. So if you can't promise me it's not going to be there, then we're not going to do this tonight. Okay? So I need a good, firm commitment that it's going to be there. So you're good, right? You can make that happen because it's important to you, Jeremy, or it's not, right? So can you figure it out? Can you figure out how to make it happen?
I'm sure we can.
Okay, good. So
Trash.
okay, so but listen, it's all about setting expectations. When you take a save and submit, listen, you get a solid date and you remove any condition. Okay, Jeremy, listen, I'm not going to call you and remind you. You can't call me and say, this doesn't, you just got to prepare for it, okay? We're good. So do you need to write that date on your calendar? Wonderful. Perfect. Okay, and I make sure, because guess what? Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead, but just call me the day before. That app is never going through. Why? Because people who are robbing Peter to pay Paul, when they figure out you're Peter, you get robbed every time, right? Okay? When they figure out you're Paul, they find another Peter.
That's right.
Okay? Except this Peter is the only one that's going to pay their family, right? So let them rob somebody else to make sure they have this.
And when he does respond to that by saying, well, I don't know that I'll have it next Friday, so let me call you when we're ready. Then
I just don't take the app. Yep, don't take the app. Never take an app with somebody who hasn't committed to a date with no conditions. Why? They die and that thing's in your turbo apps, you just created a problem for our company. Should they pay? The app hasn't been submitted, but it's sitting there. Guess what that family thinks should happen?
Right.
They think they should pay even though they wouldn't give a commitment and didn't put any money with the app and the app never got submitted. So you just created a $500,000 problem for Primerica. So if the person gave a commitment, right, and then you can write on an attestation, look, we filled this out, it was within the save and submit period, I had firm commitments they were moving forward on this day, and the company's going to do the right thing. But don't put our company in jeopardy because you don't want to get a firm commitment from people. Okay, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right, y'all have a good evening.
Woo!